what happens and how do we think in a way that we need to achieve what we want in our life. So for that there is a life cycle of a thought. So some of us must be working in software companies, right? So we all know what is a software development life cycle, all our projects execute SDLC. But there's nobody who has defined what is there in a thought. A human, when we think, normally we get around 60,000 to 70,000 thoughts per second. It go on in our mind, but there is a process for it, and that is what is called the thought life cycle framework. So I've defined 9 phases of a thought. The first phase is the phase of thought occurrence. It is where ideas generate. We call ideas, right? We have this saying that an idea can change our life. So how do they do that? How do you get new ideas? The world is running with ideas nowadays, right? Even in India, also in UP, Uttar Pradesh, there are a lot of thought storming forums. Even the government of India has also taken an initiative that all of us and every one of us cannot get all kinds of ideas. There has to be a streamlining of the thinking or thought process according to our professions. Like, for example, an IT employee doesn't know what exactly is happening in politics. He can be aware of what is going on, but he doesn't need to take control over the things, right? So that is all streamlined by our thinking, our thought process, right? So that is what makes a person different, distinguished, unique. So that is what we call them as, either a developer or a consultant or a manager or a leader. So what differentiates the person is their thinking, right? From the management way of thinking, the managerial qualities or the leadership qualities. And that is how a person tries to improvise in their personal life and also in their professional life. Climbing up the ladder. So for all this, there is a thought process. And there is a phase-wise thought process which we need to really have control over our mind and thoughts to really accomplish what we want in our life. So for example, all of us want to come up in our careers, or all of us want to have a good life, personally, professionally. How do we get that? For example, like we all dream about, buying a big villa or, buying a Range Rover or something. How do you do that? There is a plan for it, right? We have a financial plan, we have a career plan. We want to do this in 2026, we want to do this in 2027. And what is the vision for the next 5 years? What is the vision for the next 10 years? So what creates all this in a person? It's the mind. And what goes on in the mind, it's a thought. So the origin of all this thinking is a thought, and there is a process for it. It goes on with the 9 phases of thinking, which I call it as the thought life cycle framework. It's a framework based on which we have the customization of our thinking. Not everybody wants to think in a similar way. We are all different, right? I belong to IT industry, somebody belongs to politics, somebody belongs to some other profession. So they have their own ways of thinking. And not everybody should have similar ways of thinking. So this thought process is what differentiates one person from another person. So the first phase of thinking is called thought occurrence. So it is the phase where the thought originates based on our sensory perceptions. Right? All of us must have gone through something or the other in our lives, starting from our childhood. And that is how we learn from our experiences, from our knowledge. And that is what creates that new thought in a person. I got a new thought. Whatever the thought that I got, maybe you don't get the same kind of a thought. It depends on my experience, my learning, my capabilities. So once that thought occurs in our mind, then what do? The next phase, either either you want to just ignore that thought or you want to really act upon it. You just want to sit back and understand what is going on in your mind, or else you just want to ignore it. You don't want to take it for you. So based on that decision, your thought comes to the next phase of thought sustenance. So what is sustenance? You are talking about sustainability nowadays, right? So sustainability is surveillance. You know, how do we survive? What do we have to do to survive? Likewise, the thought survives for the next phase. And that is the second phase of the thought life cycle framework. So once that thought sustains in our mind, the third is you realize on that thought. Okay, fine, the thought has come from, the traversed from phase 1 to phase 2. Now you want to realize on that thought as to what you should do towards it. What are the activities and the actions that you should take to realize on that thought and to materialize into reality. We are talking about manifestation nowadays, right? What is manifestation and materialization of thoughts? To get the intangibility to tangibility. It's a very wider concept, a very ongoing subject of research nowadays. But I just want to explain it in simple terms. I don't want to really, get into the complexity, of it. So once you understand that thought realization, then you want to really take some action towards it. Like I'll put it in simple terms. You want to do your post-graduation or your higher studies in some college abroad. So you made up your mind, you got that thought, your friend also joined the same college, so you also want to join the same college. So you want to take your thought ahead. So what will you do for it? You will apply for that college, you will put up an application, and then you try for the selection, and once you get into the college. So all these are the actions that you should take to get that admission in the college, whatever that you are looking at. Similar thing is for your profession also. So all these actions and activities, if you don't act upon it, you will never, register yourself in the college, you will never get selected. So that is what, right? All these are the actions that we need to really understand and execute to accomplish what we want in our life. So once we have that thought occurrence, thought sustenance, thought realization, thought organization and design. Now that you made up your mind to do your higher studies or to pursue something or to get a new job or to go abroad or something, then you need to organize your thoughts. You have made up your mind to get admission in some Ivy League college. What do you do that after? You just have to, ask your friend what is the process, and then follow the same thing, or else Google in the internet how do you really get an admission in that college, and you organize your thoughts. Day 1, you put up your scheduler or your calendar saying that day 1 I should do this, day 2 I should do this, and for the next 30 days I should act like this, and then only you will be able to reach your goals. So that is the designing of your activities. So once you design and organize your thinking, for that you need discipline, right? We call discipline, responsibility, organized thinking. So once we have that, you execute those thoughts. You follow your calendar. You should be really serious about what you want in your life, and then you follow it, you execute it. So after execution, then what do you want? You want to see the outcome of it, right? Because we have worked so hard for it, you want to see the outcome of it. So based on the execution of your thoughts, there will be thought execution and thought outcome. And once you see the outcome of it, you feel happy about it, you remember it for a few days, and later on you tend to, as normal human beings, we tend to forget about it. And then at later point of time, maybe after a few years or few months, once you graduate from the college where you wanted to study and you get into a good job, and then one fine weekend, you just want to lay back and then ponder about how you have struggled in your life to get admission in that college. Same thing applies for every example. Maybe you want to buy some, big mansion, or you want to get into a very big corporate company. You want to get into a leadership role. You want to, become an IT leader, political leader, or social leader, anything. It's a similar thing, right? So that is the thought occurrence. That means you really memorize your thoughts and you understand how you have come up in your life, so that you stand as a role model for other people. Right? So that concept of so that you stand as a role model for other people. So once you really understand about yourself, you can teach others as to what is your biography, as a leader, and what are the leadership lessons that you can teach for others, so others can learn from you. So all this is the thought reoccurrence and thought continuity. So based on your accomplishments and achievements, like for example, you wanted some admission in some college, so you got into a college. So after that, what will you do? You have to continue it on that thought process, right? So, you wanted to do something and you have done that. So after that, what next? Is the thought continuity. And then maybe after a few years, you tend to complete about that aspect and then get on with your life, with your kids, with your career. The next phase of, the life goes on for both men and women. So that is the final stage, which we call it as thought lapse. And then from that thought lapse, a new thought emerges, right? So we have a saying, right? If one door closes, the other door opens. So if one thought lapses, another new thought emerges. So this is an ongoing process. So this is the phase that happens within a thought when we think. And this is completely a new concept. And I've done my own research on it from my childhood. Speaking to a lot of intellectuals, visiting spiritual places, and trying to understand, what happens in a thought, how should we think, when we think what happens. So this is a subject-oriented, research-oriented concept which I have published, and I've got good proof of concept and proof of validation also from a lot of people, saying that we were able to really, understand it and go through it, whatever that you have written in the book. So it's a good concept, and I've given my book to many colleges like Stanford, Harvard, the big overseas and all. So it's all going.
Any questions, sir? Any questions? So where the books available for buying on Amazon?
Yeah, it's available both within India and even outside India, on Amazon, Walmart.
So what have been the reviews on this?
Reviews are quite good. I got some reviews from good leadership people from my company and even other companies also. So they got good. They came back saying, we got benefited by your book. After reading it, our thought process has changed.
ఇది నీ పేరేం పేరు
So that
What's your name?
Dr. Srinivasarao.
శ్రీనివాసరావు వచ్చా
With Abdul Kalam Sahab also.
ఓహో అంటే మీరు డేడీ వాళ్ళనే ఉంటారా లేకుంటే
My 25th is running and
అచ్చా అచ్చా ఉండేది ఎక్కడ
నేను ఉండేది బాలాపూర్.
అచ్చా 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 అదే మనోడే
అంటే ఇవన్నీ మనకి
Thank you. Thank you,
Manoj.
Mr. Delegate. Thank you for coming here.
ఆవిడ
We are very
వీరేంద్ర రెడ్డి
happy
నా
to
పేరు
have you.
అదే వాళ్ళు ఉంటాను
Thank you.
మాకు బుక్స్ ఇస్తే మాకు ఏమైనా మేము
మేడం ఆమె అల్టిమేట్లీ ఆమెనే మేడం అవుతారు మేడం
Your friends